Buckingham Palace announcing Harry and Meghan will no longer formally represent the Queen. That means they will no longer receive public funds and they will stop using their royal titles. Those changes will take effect this spring. So Katie Nicholl is now joining.
It's my pleasure. It's a big news story. As you can imagine over here, it really has, well, the phone hasn't stopped ringing, put it that way.
And in terms of your initial reaction to this latest news, that in fact it feels like it's a full removal in the sense of not just senior royal duties, but...
A new poll by Find Out Now has revealed that most of the public is supporting the King in this family feud, ongoing family feud, after Harry's bombshell BBC interview. It follows the Court of Appeal's decision to not overturn the ruling on his security in the UK.
William, he's reportedly furious after it emerged that Meghan Markle is still using her HRH title despite agreeing to drop the title when the Sussexes left royal duties.
Meghan Markle has been very brazen recently with the use of the HRH.
Picture this. The gates of Kensington Palace may look calm tonight, yet inside those stone walls an unprecedented royal blackout has begun. William and Catherine have reportedly issued a single chilling order. No one utters Meghan Markle's name ever again. No calls, no cards, no cordial updates, nothing. After Harry's latest televised tell-all, the future king isn't shouting, he's icing. Staff whisper that the prince's anger has turned surgical, slicing every line of contact in silence, sharp enough to draw blood. Why did one interview ignite a freeze so absolute? And what secret risk to Catherine's recovery forced William's hand? Keep watching, because the quiet might be hiding the crown's loudest war. And this battle has no script, only escalating stakes. On 2nd of May, Harry slid into a softly lit BBC studio and promised a frank, healing conversation. Within minutes, the velvet gloves came off. He listed security woes, coronation snubs, unanswered calls, then dropped the quiet bomb that William and Catherine had frozen him out. His cadence remained gentle, yet every sentence landed like a courtroom exhibit. Exhibit A, the palace, failed him. Exhibit B, the palace failed Meghan. By the time the credits rolled, Spare Part 2 was trending worldwide. Inside Windsor, William watched that broadcast not as a sibling, but as the future custodian of the crown. Each carefully timed pause felt like a dart hurled at an institution built on discretion. When Harry praised Kate's quiet strength, the subtext read like an indictment of royal indifference. William saw the headlines forming in real time. Meghan once again cast as the wronged heroine, the monarchy as the cold villain, and realized his decade of patience had finally reached its terminus. The timing could not have been crueler. Doctors had just ordered absolute calm to speed Catherine's recovery, yet tabloids erupted in scarlet banners and Dark Royal Rift rocketed across 4 continents. Courtiers fielded alarmed calls from children's, charities, corporate sponsors, even Commonwealth prime ministers seeking reassurance that Britain's most famous family was not about to implode on live television. Donor checks paused mid-signature, engagements froze, and every briefing began with the blunt question, when is the palace hitting back? Breakfast shows in Sydney dissected body language. New York tabloids printed split-screen sneers, and even Nairobi talk radio debated the prince's sudden candor. Every corner of the globe chimed in. William's answer arrived before dawn. Confidential memos slid under office doors instructing staff to erase Meghan's name from every schedule, speech, and side conversation. No photographs on notice boards, no polite nod in Christmas card drafts, not even a whispered mention at morning tea. The directive landed like frost on spring roses, quiet, beautiful, lethal. Within 24 hours, the Sussex contact sheet was shuttered, and phones that once buzzed with transatlantic coordination fell utterly silent. Inside Montecito, aides refreshed news alerts in disbelief as emails to palace contacts bounced back unread, confirming the freeze was genuine and total. For the first time since their 2020 exit, London was not reacting to California. California would have to interpret a deliberate void. That flipped power dynamic sets up our next chapter, where silence itself becomes the monarchy's sharpest weapon, and Meghan's greatest test. Silence at court is nothing new, but the variety now blanketing Kensington is engineered, almost militarized. Within 48 hours of William's decree, corridor conversations turned to coded whispers. Senior aides briefly adopted the initials MM in hush-hush shorthand, then banned even that by week's end. The communications team installed a crimson keyword filter so any email containing Meghan's name is rerouted to a secure vault 2 private secretaries alone may open. Even royal pastry chefs, normally insulated from politics, were told to pipe birthday cakes without icing. Initials this year to avoid confusion. To outsiders, the shift looks like routine discretion. Inside, it feels like soundproofing a war room. Familiar rituals, red boxes at dawn, rota briefings at noon, continue. Yet an invisible tripwire now cleaves every exchange. Courtiers speak freely about coronation logistics or climate summits, but they lower their voices if a Hollywood PR request drifts in. One veteran footman joked the palace had acquired a new house ghost called She Who Shan't Be Named, drawing nervous laughter until an equerry reminded everyone that jokes still count as mentions. What makes this clampdown unprecedented is its purpose, shielding Catherine's convalescence. Doctors prescribed absolute calm, which in royal reality means treating stray headlines like biohazards. William, master of emotional thermostats, dialed the household to subarctic. Staffers who once delivered Kate's briefing binders now double as sentinels, scrubbing each dawn press digest of any Montecito flare-ups before it reaches her bedside table. Slip once, and the penalty is swift, temporary reassignment to Balmoral's wind-scoured gamekeeper lodge, miles from any microphone. Secrecy inevitably breeds curiosity. Tabloid reporters scent blood when a subject refuses to bleed. Paparazzi now camp beside the Goring and Clarence house, waving blank checks at chauffeurs for a single screenshot. Yet veteran royal correspondents complain their most reliable contacts have gone radio dark, forcing front pages to recycle stale quotes or lean on anonymous stylists willing to speculate about nothing. One Fleet Street editor grumbled that the newsroom's Meghan folder feels like a coffin with the lid nailed shut. Ironically, the hush carries an unexpected payoff: morale. Employees admit relief at the absence of daily drama. Tasks once snarled by transatlantic politics, organizing veterans' galas, hospital openings, garden parties, now glide. You can finally hear the birds again in the sunken garden, a junior equerry texted a friend. But calm in London only amplifies the echo in Montecito. Doctors rarely lecture future queens, but the memo delivered to Kensington's third-floor family wing left no wiggle room. Keep Catherine's stress levels low for at least 6 more months or risk sending her immune system into reverse. Recovery from abdominal cancer isn't gauged only in scans. It thrives on quiet breakfasts, unhurried walks, deep sleep, and heart rates that never spike at tabloid alerts. William read that letter like a wartime dispatch. If media noise threatened his wife's healing, he would treat noise the way his old RAF squadron treated engine fire. Shut off fuel, seal the hatch, fly on. So the palace reinvented itself as a floating ICU for nerves. Daily schedules were pruned, leaving only engagements that recharge rather than drain. Children's hospice visits, garden redesign meetings, private cello rehearsals with Charlotte, and occasional low-key film nights curated by the National Portrait Gallery. Courtiers who once peppered Catherine with briefing points now hand her a single-page digest printed in sage green ink, calming color psychology, signed off by her physicians. Whenever the Duchess steps into the Sunshine Courtyard, a discreet aide pings William's phone so he can join her stroll, ensuring photographers never catch her alone or startled. Yet the most radical element of the regimen is informational silence. Cardiologists warned that sudden cortisol spikes can stall tissue repair, so every potential trigger, Meghan said, Harry hinted, Netflix revealed, is intercepted before reaching Catherine's line of sight. Friends who gossip risk instant removal from the royal WhatsApp thread. Even the Middleton family agreed to pause group chats dissecting Sussex headlines until further notice. Only the medical team, William and Catherine's mother, see the unfiltered press summary, and they meet nightly to decide what, if anything, Catherine needs to know. Most evenings, the Sussex column is skipped in its entirety. The approach is paying visible dividends. Insiders whisper that Catherine's complexion looks brighter, her laughter more frequent, her appetite close to pre-diagnosis levels. She tapes coloring sheets to the kitchen fridge for George and Louis, experiments with lavender balm recipes alongside palace chefs, and has resumed gentle Pilates under the watchful eye of her physio. Small victories, yes, but enough to harden William's resolve. He will not let Meghan, headlines, or even Harry compromise this fragile climb back to health. But outside those hedges, influential figures are beginning to wonder if Catherine's well-being justifies a permanent muzzle today. What will William demand when he wears the crown tomorrow? King Charles's latest chemotherapy cycle has quietly shifted Britain's center of gravity. While the king recuperates behind Sandringham's high hedges, Kensington Palace has morphed into a provisional war room. Sealed Foreign Office cables now reach William at dawn. Lunchtime brings Privy Council dockets, and by twilight he studies intelligence files once stamped eyes only, His Majesty. Household Veterans Day protocol snapped into its next gear. The instant Charles's doctors ordered full rest, the machinery of monarchy recognizes succession stress before any human does. He now chairs a weekly contingency council with the cabinet secretary and the MI5 director, reviewing everything, from cyber threat graphs to Commonwealth opinion polling. Veteran diplomats note this is the earliest handover of statecraft duties since 1951, when a young Elizabeth covered for her ailing father, an ominous precedent William seems keenly aware of. His first directive bears a deceptively placid name, Operation Clear Skies. It is not a glossy rebrand, but a silent vacuum. Every artery that feeds the crown, finance, diplomacy, philanthropy, press, undergoes a stress test. Charitable boards once content with ribbon-cutting photographs must file quarterly impact audits. Private secretaries rotate through live fire crisis simulations staged in the palace cinema, complete with mocked-up push alerts and rogue paparazzi flashes. Even royal Instagram captions now pass a dignity filter, scrubbing clickbait, adjectives in favor of stately understatement. Courtiers call the cultural pivot the frost line. Below it, traditional pomp continues. Investitures, garden parties, trooping the color rehearsals. Above it sits a glacial ring of strategy meetings where William demands straight talk and buries sentiment. Lawyers who once preached appeasement toward Montecito have been shunted to outer offices. Advisors from Elizabeth II's inner circle, celebrated for ice-water poise, are back at the table. One describes the new briefings as boardroom Netflix, tense, binge-worthy, no filler episodes. Remarkably, the prince enforces discipline without fireworks. He ends the debate with two measured words, historic continuity. The phrase lands like a gavel because everyone present knows what that continuity cost his grandmother. 8 decades of personal restraint. In William's ledger, Meghan is not a nemesis. She is a low-pressure system already plotted on the forecast. Map, protect Catherine, stabilize the throne, project longevity. Those are the only actionable items. Yet reputational weather can shift. Hollywood producers once dazzled by Meghan's Duchess fairy tale are quietly shelving projects. Fashion editors hedge their praise with nervous disclaimers, and charities postpone collaborations until Windsor. Sensitivities are clarified. Isolation, once whispered, is now measurable data. How that global chill erodes Meghan's influence, and why former allies ghost her at record speed, forms. From Los Angeles boardrooms to Mayfair salons, insiders describe the same phenomenon. One moment, Meghan's name opened every door. The next, it clanged shut like a service elevator between floors of power. Once, Meghan Markle couldn't cross a Beverly Hills parking lot without an agent begging for a meeting. Today, the same decision-makers study their phones when her name flickers on caller ID. The chill that started in Windsor has traveled 5,000 miles and seeped into every corridor where influence is traded. Hollywood is an ecosystem that feeds on good optics. Cutting ties is painless when box office forecasts look cloudy. First casualty, fashion royalty. Edward Enninful, the Yarfai, British Vogue titan who once lauded Meghan as the face of modern monarchy, quietly excused himself from her inner circle this spring. Staffers at Vogue whisper that repeated requests for damage control features became exhausting. When the Duchess's team pitched a glossy anniversary spread, Enninful's reply, a polite calendar-full email, rang louder than any editorial. Streaming executives are next to step back. Netflix accountants now evaluate Sussex projects on raw metrics, not sentimental buzz. Their docu-series spiked subscriptions for 1 quarter, then plateaued. Follow-up concepts linger in development limbo, industry code for probably never. One producer confided to Deadline that Meghan's brand has shifted from aspirational to unpredictable, a trait investors avoid like wet cement. Even lifestyle empires are wobbling. A multi-million-dollar deal with a wellness supplement, startup stalled after consumer research panels reported palace fatigue. Sponsors fear that aligning with someone frozen out by the royals could alienate overseas markets still enamored with crown pageantry. Marketing decks have been hastily redlined, the Duchess's smiling headshots replaced by neutral botanicals. Patterns repeat. Rapid friendship, intense collaboration, abrupt collapse. Stylists flown in for emergency fittings describe a client who wants total creative control, yet withholds final approval until press time, forcing overnight redesigns. Glam Squad insiders, once eager to boast about a royal on their resume, now invoke non-disclosure clauses and pivot the conversation to safer A-list clientele. This isn't a tabloid dunk, it's a visible contraction of social capital. Reputation. Reporters measure it in vanishing Instagram likes, empty seats at charity galas, and editorial columns that once defended Meghan now running lukewarm trend pieces. The Duchess famously championed hard boundaries with relatives she felt were toxic. Now corporations practice the same distancing, citing fiduciary duty instead of family drama. But dwindling allies create a communications vacuum, and vacuums crave content. Enter Angela Levin's doctrine of dignified silence, which the palace wields like invisible ink, erasing Meghan's narrative while forcing her to write the next chapter alone. Royal biographer Angela Levin calls the tactic dignified silence, an approach as old as Windsor stone, yet sharper than any press release. Instead of trading volleys, the firm simply retreats behind thick drapes, forcing critics to shout into a void. Editors hungry for quotes find their emails ignored. Breakfast shows recycle the same 3 archival clips because nothing new escapes the palace gate. Without counterpunches, every Meghan statement dangles in midair, inviting viewers to judge, motives unaided. In a world built on friction, the absence of friction becomes the plot twist. Psychologists studying social media note that silence functions like an information black hole. It absorbs attention while reflecting nothing back, causing observers to question the credibility of the lone speaker. That dynamic is crippling for Meghan, whose brand relies on rapid narrative control. Whenever she releases an inspirational podcast clip or paparazzi photo op, the palace issues precisely zero response. Yet search trends spike for William and Catherine, not her. Even friendly outlets concede the asymmetry is brutal. You can't box with an opponent who never enters the ring. Behind palace doors, aides call the policy risk-free pruning. Every unreturned volley clips a budding controversy. For Meghan, each unanswered claim forces her to escalate. Yet escalation reinforces the storyline she hates, that the monarchy is unmovable, she, the restless outsider. The longer silence holds, the tighter the psychological tourniquet. That leaves one variable beyond the crown's control: Harry, poised on a tightrope only he can decide to cross. Prince Harry paces a metaphorical rope stretched between Montecito's serene rose garden and Windsor's immovable stone. On one side sit Netflix contracts, a ghost-written memoir, and a public identity forged in righteous grievance. On the other waits an aging father who still signs the checks and a brother holding the keys to future relevance. Courtiers have established the entry fee for a partial homecoming. No more tell-alls, no sly digs and keynote speeches, and absolutely no camera crews inside palace walls. Privately, they call it the 3-year clause. Stay silent, show steady contrition, re-earn trust through low-glare charity work, and invitations might resume. Yet capitulation risks imploding Harry's California brand. Streaming executives financed his candor, not his compliance. If he pulls the plug on controversy, algorithms flatten, book royalties stall, speaking fees shrink. Friends say that prospect rattles him more than tabloids ever did. Raising 2 toddlers in luxury requires a revenue stream, and Sussex LLC is powered by exposure. That commercial dependence tightens the rope each news cycle. The longer Harry hesitates, the more Buckingham's offer recedes like low tide, replaced by William's frost line. Insiders note the prince still calls his cousins, trades photos of the kids, asks discreetly about Charles's health, signs he longs for familiar ground. But the same insiders warn, once William's protector instinct calcifies into kingly duty, the rope may snap, leaving Harry stranded, waving across an ocean of silence. Silence has turned into Buckingham's loudest proclamation. William ring-fences Catherine's recovery, corridors speak in code, and Meghan's media machine keeps swinging at absent targets. Brand deals retreat, former allies vanish, and even, once adoring magazines now hedge their praise. Across the Atlantic, Harry sways between 2 poles: ancestral duty and the lucrative outrage economy that funds his California life. One misstep could see him exiled from both kingdoms. In this clash, the hush itself is the weapon, absorbing headlines, starving controversy, and redefining power as the right to say nothing at all. Now you get to break the quiet. Is the royal freeze-out smart damage control or merciless exile? Could Harry ever earn a way back without detonating his West Coast brand? Sound off below. If deep dive breakdowns beat tabloid fluff in your feed, tap like, smash that bell, and subscribe so you're first to know when the next seismic shift hits the crown. Because in this saga, the whisper may yet become the scream, and the next echo could drop any second.